10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I am happy to be here with you. This is Michael Voss, and we are on the Exceptional Conservative Network, joining you for the 200th episode of No Soundbites Allowed, the podcast, the video cast, here with you, enjoying my time with you. Guys, I have to tell you, there is nothing better that I do, nothing better than I have to do every week than speak with you. I enjoy this, and I thank you, each and every one of you. You guys make it, you're the best. You really are the best audience out there, and I enjoy it. And I'm just so happy to be here with you and to be able to say that I'm having my 200th podcast. And I want to stop for a second because the first thing I want to do, this is the Memorial Day weekend, and so I want to take a moment just to celebrate a little bit about Memorial Day. Now, this is something from Facebook. For those who are on the audio of the podcast, you won't be able to see the show. What you're seeing on the screen right now is what is the difference? I hear this all the time. What's the difference between Armed Forces Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day? People get them confused a lot. Well, let's make it easy. The third Saturday of May for each year is Armed Forces Day. And for those who are currently wearing the uniform, for those who are active military, that's Armed Forces Day, our active military. Veterans Day is obviously for those who are no longer actively in our military. People like members of my family, really great heroes, people I've talked to all across the world, people like Lee Spinner, hey Lee, I know you're out there, and so many others of my friends and family who have served but are no longer in uniform, including you, Francine, my sister. And then there's Memorial Day, which we are celebrating now. Oh, by the way, Veterans Day, again, is on November 11th, one day after the Marine Corps birthday, which is November 10th. A great day, and Marines across the world, remember, that is our second birthday, November 10th. But Memorial Day is the last Monday of May, which usually winds up like the 28th, 29th, 30th, right in there. But more importantly, Memorial Day is for those who served and died for us. Those who, as the meme, as the message on Facebook shows in the image, it's for those who never made it out of the uniform, for those who have served and given the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, for everything that we have and everything that we are. And that's the difference between those days. And a lot of people mix that up because it's a lot about veterans, but it's a celebration of all of them. And as I mentioned in my previous podcast, we saw that Memorial Day started about 1868. It was a reaction to the 1865 war, the Civil War, and it was started, some dispute it, but it seems to have been started down in Charleston, South Carolina, when we had the black troops that had served in the Civil War were memorializing and remembering all of the soldiers that died in the Civil War. And then from there, it just grew beyond. Not that there haven't always been remembrances of those who passed in wars and conflicts around the world throughout all of history, but that's when it became more formally and more annualized here in the United States. So I wanted to share that because I think it's important to remember, how did we get here? How did we get here? And what this weekend is supposed to be about. And I think it's important to remember what this weekend is supposed to be about. And as you know in the show, we always like to do every week, and sometimes more than once in a week, but definitely in every week, we try to do a Game of Thrones shame. Something, the worst kind of shame. And I continue to say, for this week, in every episode we try and do something different, but this week I want to go back to and continue to say it's the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Shame on you. Shame on you, Federal Bureau of Prisons, because you did the wrong thing here. You guys are so wrong in that they allowed I don't even have the word for this guy, the criminal, the horrible Taliban American, John Lind, is being released early. You may have seen this in my prior podcast when I spoke about John Lind. And he's the guy who actively joined the Taliban to fight against American soldiers. He was complicit in having Americans killed in that fight. And when he was caught, he's been convicted. It's treason. He's lucky he didn't get shot for it. He is a horrible individual. He was sentenced to 20 years. I believe the death penalty would have applied and should have. He's being released early after serving 17 years and 5 months. But he's being released early, and he's going to be traveling to Virginia. And it really aggravates me massively. I cannot explain how angry that makes me that John Lind is going to be released and going free when so many others are not. And he was complicit in making sure that some of those people cannot come back home. On Memorial Day weekend, at a time when we are remembering so many people from the Civil War, World War II, World War I, from the Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, Iraq. Think of all those individuals, tens of thousands of Americans who have served and died, never to come back home, for our nation. And whether you think our nation has flaws or not, and it does, because everything human has flaws, to release on this weekend, especially on this weekend, to release John Lind is insulting. And I don't understand why we're seeing the Federal Bureau of Prisons releasing this individual early and on Memorial Day weekend. And by the way, as I mentioned in a prior podcast, John Lind is unrepentant. This has been reported by several news agencies, not just one, several agencies over the time that he has been in prison have said he has not repented. He still is a Taliban. He still wants to destroy and kill Americans in service of his fanatical religious views. That is a problem. I have a problem with anyone who has a fanatical religious view. It doesn't matter what religion it may be. All religions, when you have a fanatical religious individual, they are dangerous. This one in particular has sworn to destroy America, its very existence. We hear this from Iran on a regular basis, the greatest source of funding of terror in the world. The number one funding of terrorism in the world, targeted against the United States. They have repeatedly said so. They continue to say so, even during the Iran nuclear deal. Even as President Obama and John Kerry were speaking about how great the Iran nuclear deal was, we heard Iran saying, no, it's death to America. We're going to kill America. And the Iran nuclear deal is just a pause in the process of removing America from the face of the earth. That is troubling. I don't know how you make a deal with people who are swearing to your face that they're going to kill you. And I want to be very clear. That's Democrats, that's progressives, that's conservatives, liberals, libertarians, Republicans. It doesn't matter who you are. If you are American, they want to kill you. Period. They don't make a distinction on your political preferences. They don't care. Well, actually, they do care if you're transgender. They want to kill you faster. If you're gay, they want to kill you faster. But they want to kill us all because we are Americans and they do not agree with our existence. So every time I hear someone talking about the Iran nuclear deal and it was so great and why are we getting rid of it? And oh my God, now Iran is they're shooting off missiles. John Bolton's mentioning this week how they're violating the treaty sanctions, that they were not supposed to be, they're supposed to be prohibited from being able to develop new missiles, not part of the Iran nuclear deal. That's a separate issue, because that Iran nuclear deal didn't address their missile testing, which is what they're trying to figure out. How to get a bomb, a nuclear bomb, a chemical bomb, into the United States from Iran. They're trying to get intercontinental ballistic weapons, ICBMs. That's what they've been working on. They don't need a nuke if they can't get the missile here, and they haven't been able to. That's what they've been working on. And that's what they're working on right now. And that's what the Iran nuclear deal helped fund. Let's remember that. The Iran nuclear deal, I did a lot of articles about this. You can go over to the mvass.com, the MVAS site, that's the Voss political commentary site, and put in Iran nuclear deal. I've done a lot of articles on it. I've been following it for a long time. They have been figuring out how to get a bomb to kill Americans, and that's why they took the pause, because it doesn't matter if they have a nuclear bomb if they can't get it here. These guys are troubling, they are dangerous, and someone who believes in their fundamental views of the Ayatollah Khomeini, that America, all of America, must die. When you have that, and that American Taliban, John Lind, believes in that, and you release him on Memorial Day, I'm sorry, that is insulting. That is aggravating. It makes me very upset. It pisses me off. It really does. And it should. It should upset all of us. I don't care that he wants to go to Virginia. He's going to go into seclusion and hiding. I don't care that, some people say, well, he served his time. Treason doesn't have a time limit, especially when you are unrepentant. I mean, that's the big difference here. Unrepentant. It's one thing if he had repented truly and honestly and sincerely and wanted to make better of his life. I work with many nonprofits. One of them in particular is about giving people who have repented for their crimes and are trying to reintegrate themselves into society and to be beneficial and positive sources, individuals that want to give back to their community and to make up and do better in their lives, make up for the crimes they committed and do better in their lives. I have a nonprofit. There's a nonprofit that I work with specifically for that. So don't tell me that, oh, you just hate everyone. No, they have repented. They have honestly repented. This isn't contrition. This isn't just some kind of show to make sure that people will release them from prison so they can go back to their lives that they had before and continue what they did before. That's different. I don't have pity for that. Help those who want to help themselves. Help those who are trying to better themselves. Absolutely. But when we have someone who's unrepentant, like John Lind, there's a problem. And guess what, America? He's not the only one. We have about a dozen individuals who have been, in some way, they have committed treason, they have been convicted of treason since 2001, since 9/11, that are in prisons and are looking at, within the next 5 years, they're going to be up for release into America because we don't have the death penalty for treason anymore. And they're going to be released into the general population. And it seems that these individuals, these traitors, they have committed treason against the United States. They have either successfully or attempted to kill Americans for the purpose of destroying this nation. And they are all planning to come out of prison. And the best answer we have at this moment, like with John Lind, is that the government will monitor their internet actions for 3 years. They'll keep an eye on them for 3 years. They'll have a little monitor badge. So for the rest of his time that he would have served, he's going to have that ankle bracelet. We'll track him. And then what? And then what happens? What happens the day that the ankle bracelet goes off and the government stops, quote unquote, stops looking at his computers and what he's saying and who he's messaging and what he's planning? What about the others? It's a very troubling question. It's a very troubling question. And there is no good answers. And because there are no good answers, and because we don't have a plan for that, I have to say shame on the Federal Bureau of Prisons for releasing this individual without having a plan, without being sure that they're protecting America, without knowing for sure that this is the best thing to do, and absolutely because this is the wrong weekend to do it. But that's my thoughts. You may disagree. And by the way, for the show, this is our 200th episode, and I'm enjoying being here with you. Please remember, you can check out the commentary. You can go over to our chat room. You can reach us. We're checking everything on Facebook. We're checking on Twitter. The Twitter is MV Consult, and you can reach us there. And I hope everyone is having a really good weekend, separate of everything I've just discussed. But I do hope everyone's having a good weekend with friends and family, that you're able to remember and celebrate what we have been given at the cost of blood and sweat and lives, not just those that have died, but those who continue to suffer with PTSD or various injuries that they may have received because they served our nation to the ultimate level. And I know many friends like that, and to each of them, I say thank you. Thank you for the service that you did, for the time that you spent in active warfare, which I did not. I did serve in the military, but I did not serve in active warfare. And I do want to say to all of my colleagues, those who have served, my friends, all of you, thank you. Thank you. You give me the opportunity to be here, to be able to have these conversations without being shot by some Gestapo secret police. I thank you for allowing me to be able to have a home, to have electricity, to live a life that is so envied around the world that we have millions of people who are trying to illegally enter our nation to be part of it. Let's think about that for a second. We hear a lot of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, pretty much all of the Democratic 2020 candidates. They want to tell us how bad America is, that we have to change America, that there's a problem with America. And they seem to forget that America, which they think is completely wrong and needs to be completely revamped, is the place that tens of millions, not a million, not hundreds of thousands, tens of millions of people have come to and continue to come to because it is the best place in the world. They travel from overseas. They cross oceans. They cross thousands of miles of inhospitable and dangerous land to come into our nation, legally and illegally, every year. Every year. They're doing it right now. We have more people trying to get into this nation. It's crisis, and that's beyond crisis levels. It's been crisis. It's beyond crisis levels of individuals trying to enter our nation because of the blood, the sweat, the tears, the PTSD, the injuries that so many people have received to ensure that we are the greatest nation on the earth. And we are. Do not be fooled by slogans, ads, cheerful, bright-eyed, doleful little members of Congress. We are the greatest nation on this planet as we exist right now. Do we have flaws? Of course we do. I don't know anything created by human beings that doesn't have flaws. Anything that deals with human beings talking to another human being, I don't know anything that doesn't have flaws. Of course we are flawed. Of course the world is flawed. But given those flaws, does it get better than America? No, it does not. I do not see millions of people. I don't see hundreds. There's definitely not thousands. There's not even hundreds of people who are trying to enter Venezuela or to enter Cuba or to go to the USSR, Russia, or communist China or North Korea. You don't see people trying to give up their citizenship and join those nations because they're so great. You don't. That's just a fact. But you have millions who are trying to get into America. It says something. And it's because of those who have served and given the greatest of sacrifices. And we should remember that this weekend. I do. I remember it every day. I can't do what I do without those sacrifices, so I thank them. And so, yes, my 200th episode is about freedom. It's about respecting and thanking that service that we have received. And I think it's important. But there's a lot of things I do want to get into. And at 1 o'clock, we will have our guest coming in. And let me tell you a little bit about our guest, because I would just want to take a quick break and talk to him about him. In our 200th episode, our guest is Dr. Giovanni Scaringi. Now, he's a friend of mine. We've been talking for years. I met him back when he was on the campaign trail. He's a city councilman for the city of Binghamton, New York. I met him when he was campaigning and trying to get in there. He's a Republican, and we have a lot of similar views. He actually is a professor of economics. He teaches over at SUNY Broome and SUNY Binghamton, Binghamton University in the region. He's known as a tough but fair professor, but he's also a city councilman, and he's so much more. And he's a great friend. I enjoy him. He was our first guest on No Soundbites Allowed. Okay, before we were the Exceptional Conservative Network, before anyone knew about it, back before we had any of the equipment we had here, when we were just figuring out how to actually even make a podcast, we got Dr. Giovanni Scaringi. He came on. He did us the favor, and he was very kind. One of the first politicians, and the first interview, and the first politician to come on and speak with us and talk about all the things that were affecting people. And it was a great conversation. I think we spoke for 2 hours at the time, just covering everything. And so I couldn't think of someone better to have back for episode 200 to talk about the things that have changed in over 3.5 years, 4 years, all the things that have changed in the world. That it'll be great to see his perspective. And it's also one of the most popular of our interviews. And we've had a lot of very popular interviews. We've had interviews with Heather L. Micha. She, one of our top interviews there as well. And she's a small businesswoman, a mom, who's putting on the Harmony event here upcoming in about a month in the Binghamton Southern Tier region to help children who are suffering because of the addictions of their parents, whether it's alcohol, opioids, drugs, doesn't matter. And so that's also another one of our popular ones. Matter of fact, I was looking back over time at just all the different things that we've done on the show, the different subjects that we've covered. And it's kind of interesting that some of the most popular episodes we have ever had deal with the transition of President Trump into power and the backlash, the emotional reaction from the far left, the corruption that we saw take place in the 2016 election year. That's, Donna Brazile giving away questions to prep Hillary Clinton, the fact that Senator Sanders could not win because the race was rigged against him. Literally, factually, Democrats rigged the election against him, and yet her candidate lost. And all of how that all impacted America, and talking about that in 2016. Talking about Representative Anthony Brindisi back when he was still the assemblyman for New York and the Utica Hospital. And that scandal up in Utica Hospital, where we saw that, and we see currently that eminent domain is being used as a weapon of the political process created by a handful of people, including Anthony Picenti, the county executive up in Utica, and also Anthony Brindisi, then the assemblyman, now a congressman from the New York 22nd District, and how they arranged and through backdoor deals created a circumstance that doesn't help anyone, that literally was out there to hurt the public. But that's what he did. And so that was a great article. And we were talking, and of course, talking about the absurdity back in just February of last year, in 2018, talking about the absurdity of laws for gun control that have failed, continued to fail the public. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And of course, there's also my coverage of CPAC and many of the interviews I did at CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference of 2019. And I will be going back in 2020. But we had a lot of interviews there, very popular. Great time speaking with people like Eric Caron, Claudia Tenney, the former congresswoman for the New York 22nd District, so many, Marissa Hamilton out of Arizona, talking about women and guns, so many interviews, and covering, of course, Vice President Mike Pence and also President Donald Trump with their live speeches from the event. And so that was really great. But let me take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the past. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on right now. Of course, we are always looking for your comments, your questions, your statements. This is about sharing time with you and how you're sharing your Memorial Day. So please do reach out to us. We're on the chat room. You can talk to us over at Facebook. You can talk to us on Twitter. We are looking at all of it. But most of all, we are happy to be here with you, spending our time in this holiday with you on our 200th episode of No Soundbites Allowed. And we're going to be right back in just a moment.
Sometimes a man is wrong. Oh, she took 5 steps. Oh, and she was gone. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. She said, I know you ain't got a cheating heart. Oh, your love is true. You just gotta, she never gonna fall. Oh, it's gonna love this time. Oh, it's one of those times. She don't mean a thing. She just had eyes of fire in a heart so cold. One touch, lost control. What is time? Oh, it's one of those times.
Yes, I'm here with you folks, all right? And thank you again for being here with us at the Exceptional Conservative Network with our program, the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. By the way, you can see many of the programs here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, including Ken McClinton. He is a great patriot, and he's one of the president of the program, and he has his own show here. We do advise you to check that out, and Dr. Jane Ruby and so many others that are on this channel and network that you can check out with their thoughts from all across the country, from out in Maryland with Shannon and Mike Wright, who, and by the way, Shannon is running for the mayor of Baltimore. We've done an interview with her. Please do check out that interview and check out her show, The Right Way, WRIGHT Way. It's a great program, and so many others. Oh, it's just too much. But I do also want to say thank you to the Belmar Pub and to the Park Diner. They are my friends. This is not a paid advertisement. They are great. And if you are in the Binghamton area, especially during Memorial Day, drop on in to the Belmar Pub, to the Park Diner, say hello to my friends, and enjoy great food, great atmosphere, really good people. I enjoy them. I want you to check them out. I think you'll have a great time there. And I go there myself on a regular basis, which is why I mention it. Again, that's not paid. That's just me talking about my friends out there. And when I speak about my friends, I do also want to speak about what happened just yesterday. And part of the reason why the show's a little different than, a lot different than what I was looking to do for the 200th episode, because we were looking initially at having a lot of different things, but we went dark for a while. And when I say that, when people say that in the media, what does it mean to be dark? Essentially, the lights were out. We didn't have internet. We were shut down for a little while. And that's because we're trying to hit a goal. And hopefully you can help us. We want to hit $5,000 is our goal. It helps us keep the lights on to be able to produce this show, to go to and from everywhere we need to get to. And it's hard to do that without your help. You make the difference. And our goal, we've gotten $90. I want to thank John Solak, Bob Murphy, Jared D., Ed Hickey. I should also add in there someone who's helped a lot with the show behind the scenes, Michael Woodward. And I want to thank, and also most especially, our very, very special supporter who yesterday, when everything got shut down on the internet, because it costs money to do all of this, thousands of dollars every year to produce this, and we're not a major media company. We don't get major advertising, which we would love to have, but we don't have that. And so we rely on your donations, and we had a special supporter who came in and helped us get the internet back on so we could do our 200th episode, to be able to continue to do this for you for this month. And so we thank them for that. But we have a goal. We want to hit that 90. We want to get to $5,000. Help us get there. Please just go and donate. It's a GoFundMe. Donate, whether it's $1, $5. If you want to be like, Bob Murphy, make it $50, or Ed, like $25. John Solak put in $10. Bajarik put in $5. Anything and everything. It all helps. It all adds up. It helps us pay the bills for doing things like going to CPAC 2019, for doing the interviews and getting everyone set and keeping the internet live that we'd love to bring to you. And we want to get our internet, we want to get our email back on so that we can check on our emails and your comments by email to us, and to also set up some of our interviews. So please, anything you can do, it does make a difference. It does help. So with all that said and put to the side, and we're getting ready for our guest coming up in just a little while, that is Dr. Giovanni Scaringi, as I was talking about him before. I also want to just go into a little bit of something different. You guys are great. I don't know if everyone noticed that this was one of our biggest articles, one of our biggest YouTube interviews, or interviews on YouTube. Oops, I'm going to play that for you right now. Oops. Hold on. This is one of our bigger articles, interviews that we had. This is with Fran Lebowitz calling the public dumb in and as she was walking it back, her comments. And I got to tell you, folks, that this is a dangerous time in our nation.
And certainly he deserves to be impeached.
I keep doing that.
Deserves.
Stop doing that. That's not a paid advertisement.
Blah, blah, blah.
Stop. This is, from our conversation about Fran Lebowitz, and I'm going to stop messing with that because I keep hitting it. But, America's under assault right now. And that's really troubling. That we see so many times people like Fran Lebowitz and Bill Maher and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and so many others who are out there saying that America is not great. Matter of fact, that was Governor Andrew Cuomo. America's never been great. What? Are you crazy? Look at his own family is a great example of the success story of America. Immigrants that came over, and in the next generation, he becomes mayor of New York. His father, second generation, his father gets to become mayor of New York. They're considered for the presidency. Whether or not that would be failed or not doesn't matter. They're in the contention for that. Multi-millionaires, brothers on national TV, news media. Is it nepotism? Probably, but doesn't matter. That's not the point. Look at the success they've had. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a bartender who is now a member of Congress. Whether or not she's an idiot, and she is, doesn't really matter. You can, in America, go from being a bartender to a member of Congress. In America, you can go from being a community organizer to president. In America, you can succeed. And as much as people are trying to tell you, you can't, from, if you're listening to, Citizen Action, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, if you're listening to Black Lives Matters, they're telling you about how you can't succeed in this nation, even though we have seen tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals who have given their life and their blood to America, and they have proven you can succeed. You will succeed in America. And we have that proof. In 2019, we have that proof. It's very simple. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a congresswoman. Doesn't matter if you like her, if you hate her. Like I said, I think she's an idiot. Doesn't matter. Because she was a bartender and she is now a congresswoman. And there is nowhere else in the world that I can point to where someone can make that much of a transition in their life. Where you can go from the lowest economic rung, well, she was never quite at the lowest, but from a lower economic class to a position of power, national power, influencing the direction of the nation. Where you can go from being a nobody to leader of the world, like President Obama. You can't do that in other nations. It's not possible to do that in other nations, but you can do it in America. And they want to tell me, I listen to these people, and they do this because of the blood and the sweat and the PTSD and the suffering of those who have served our nation and given the greatest of gifts. And to tell me or anyone that our nation is not great, they have no idea what they're talking about. But that doesn't mean our nation is perfect. That's why we have people like John Lind, and we have people like Bill de Blasio, Mayor Bill de Blasio, who is running for Congress, for the presidency, who thinks he's a great guy. He thinks he's somehow better than most and able to, I just don't even understand how to explain him. He's not liked in New York. 76% of people do not think he's a good politician, do not think he would be good as president, and he has a reportedly 0% standing in the national polling. 0 in the national polling. I do want to share that with you. Here it is. In the most recent polling across the nation, he's not even in there. He doesn't make it. He's 0. He's actually below Kirsten Gillibrand at her 0.7%. And she's doing miserable. She's on her way out of the race. She's doing so badly that, as we had discussed previously, Senator Cory Booker, had to try and save her campaign in a very Machiavellian move to improve his standing. He wanted to save her. And guess what? Bill de Blasio doesn't even get that. He's nowhere on the mark, even though he's rich. Possibly because he's a rich white man, but you can't really say that because so is Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, two very rich, white, old men. So Democratic Party says which old white men are the problem in America, and yet those are the people leading their party. I don't understand the confusion that goes on in the Democratic Party, where one side is saying one thing and then they do exactly. We see this all the time. They do one thing and they're saying one thing and they do another. Kind of like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I still don't understand how this didn't get to be national news when she tweeted, in her own words, in the official Twitter for her, that that she considers anyone who believes her statements that the world will end in 12 years if we don't do the Green New Deal, that they have the social intelligence of a sea sponge. Now, first of all, I don't know what social intelligence is. I don't know how that's different than having intelligence, period. Again, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I believe, in my personal opinion, is an idiot because she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she obviously didn't go to college for English. But that being said, she called her supporters, the kids, the sixth graders that went to go and see Dianne Feinstein, pleading with her to fight for the Green New Deal, the high school students that sat right across from me in the Binghamton Town Hall meeting for Anthony Brindisi in 2019 in February. And I was sitting with them, and those kids are sitting right across from me, asking Anthony Brindisi whether or not he's going to support a 70% tax rate to be able to support the Green New Deal, as he stumbled and said he didn't know how to answer the question, and in fact didn't answer the question. We have these kids who have been raised and taught that this is the most deadly, devastating thing that will ever happen in their lifetime, even though we have no proof of that physically in the world. But they're being told this day in, day out, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the one telling them this, and she is also saying at the same time, this is a sarcasm and that it is not real, and if you believe that the 12-year limit is real, you are as dumb as a sea sponge. Wow. I just don't get that. It's amazing to me. And then we also have in the Democratic Party Speaker Nancy Pelosi mentioning that, confirming and saying she believes that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is out of her mind, and that constituents in the New York 14th District and Democrats overall are as compliant and useless and dumb as a glass of water. And we've done episodes on this. We've shown you the video and the articles on this. So I'm just restating what's already been put out there. This is their words, covered by the major media, news media that is left-leaning. I very often on this program try to make sure that I'm not just focusing on right-leaning sources. I look at all of the media. I look at everything that's being said out there, and I find these sources from the left. It's so bad that even the left-leaning organizations can't hide that this insanity exists. And these are the people who are trying to destroy America. People who think that constituents are as smart as a glass of water, as compliant as a glass of water, that are as dumb as a sea sponge. I mean, that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And these are the people that some want to lead our nation, to lead the direction in the future of our nation. They have such little respect for the people. I don't know. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And, we see that in the polling. Look at the most radical of these individuals, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Andrew Yang, Senator Cory Booker, Beto, the fake Hispanic Beto O'Rourke, Robert O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and of course, Senator Bernie Sanders. All of them are radical in their beliefs, radical in the things that they believe in. They want to throw you in jail. A bunch of these guys, and there's even more that aren't on this list, like Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, they're all happy with the idea of throwing, even Kamala Harris, they're happy with the idea of saying, well, if you have your Second Amendment, if you own a firearm, we'll throw you in jail if you keep it. We're going to take it away from you. Really? I'd like to see you try. There's a reason why there's a Second Amendment, and that is because we don't want to be Venezuela. But that's some of the things that are going on. And so in this 200th episode, while I'm not focusing on a issue, I'm focusing on where's our nation? Where is our nation? What are the thoughts that are going on? What's happening? Because our nation is in a transition. And we're always in a transition, to be honest. You hear that in every election cycle. This is the most important election. This is, this makes the difference. Our nation's going to change after this. And it's always true. It's always true. Our nation is changing, and we are always evolving. And it is always important for each election, because in each election, we keep seeing that we're moving further and further over the last 50 years, further and further to the left. We're seeing our nation slowly drift away from the Constitution, slowly drift away from our inalienable rights. Inalienable. Not human rights, which are given by government and can be taken by government and can be redefined by government. That's what Venezuela had. Venezuela had human rights. And those human rights did not include the ability to defend yourself from a corrupt government. That did not have the right to defend yourself from harm. They didn't believe in that. They said, government will take care of me. Government will be there. Well, government is running people, is running the public over and shooting them for years. 2 years ago, there were articles out about how they were 500 police officers running around the nation just shooting people. This isn't a new thing. It's been going on for a while. And that pales in comparison to the things that happened in North Korea or in China. Remember Tiananmen Square? This is what we get with the socialism. How do we get... That's why these elections are so important. Because when you don't pay attention to it, when you let these little things slide, then you get closer and closer to failing and becoming like these other failed nations. And yes, I will say, China, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, they're failed. The former Soviet Union crumbled, literally it's gone, because communism, socialism, they fail. They have always failed because they are inherently based on a very flawed methodology, and that they are based in control, which human beings will naturally fight against because we have inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by government. And when government tries, human beings will resist, and we will succeed every single time. And I've said this over and over in many, many episodes. And you may disagree with me, and you can. Again, this is a conversation we're having. And you may think that something I'm saying is wrong. Tell me why. I'm open to hear that. But I have to tell you, when I have individuals that I'm listening to, like Fran Lebowitz, who is more than happy to go out there and say, hey, America is not great. When we have individuals who are like, when we're listening to Governor Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, and others, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when we're listening to them tell us how bad America is, I have a problem with that. When Fran Lebowitz is suggesting that we kill the president, how dare you? And that's something that if I had ever said, or if anyone, any conservative had ever said something like that about President Obama, there would be riots in the streets. The media would be losing its mind. But Fran Lebowitz says that we should kill the president. It's okay. When we hear Bill Maher say that he hopes and encourages that our economy were to crash, devastating hundreds of thousands of Americans' lives, just so that in his view, President Trump would not be reelected because of his political preference, that is dangerous. I mean, these people are literally on the edge of treason. They're talking about destroying our government, our social society, our society, our economic basis. They want to destroy lives because of their political preference, and your opinion doesn't matter. See, that's why I do this program, because it does matter. And whether there's dozens of people who are willing to speak out or just a couple, it's always important that we speak out. Always important that we speak out, because it makes the difference. Okay, and just to let people know, Gio has mentioned he's going to be here about 1:10, so no problem. We're looking forward to that. And kind of figured he might be a little bit late. It is the holiday weekend here. But it's very troubling. Truly, it is. To listen to people like this say, Fran Lebowitz out there saying that she wants to kill the president, hearing Bill Maher say and get applauded for saying that the economy should go into a recession or a depression for his political beliefs, to listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say that people do not have the freedom or the right to live a life unless they live by her dictates, which means go back to the Middle Ages, to not be able to fly in planes, to take a train to Hawaii. I mean, that's just stupid. And why should we have to be, why do you have the right to impose your view on the rest of America just because you think you're right? What about the rest of us? Especially when you then turn around when no one's paying attention, or very few people are paying attention, and saying that, well, if you believe this, you're an idiot, that you're just a sea sponge. That's why we do this. You see, I know my audience out there. Not everyone, and this is true of most things with politics. Most people won't speak publicly. You'd be amazed how many times I have conversations with individuals privately or off the record, and they agree with me. They agree with you. But they don't want to say it publicly because everyone's afraid, what's going to happen? It costs money to get the message out there. And not everyone's going to say, yes, I agree with you. People are afraid to make comments. I was talking to a teacher just 2 days ago who is a conservative, but is afraid for their job to make a comment on Facebook. So instead they just read things on Facebook and won't comment. Otherwise, they will lose their job because the rest of their peers will attack them, because the union will attack them. That's sad. I was just on Wednesday, I was at my local city council meeting. And you know what happened in that city council meeting? We had union representative came in to watch the rest of his union workers as they attacked our local city council on an issue that was being misrepresented in large part, that was politicized to get a political message across because it was being taped without any concern about what the facts were. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with Dr. Giovanni Scaringi, but this is allowed because, they're progressives, they're unions, they're Democrats. And it's okay that they can make up allegations, that they can make wild, random statements that are erroneous. But it's okay because no one's paying attention, because no one wants to speak out and say, you're wrong. I did. But you know what? They knew that I would be the only one there. They don't show up. I've been there all year. I'm not elected to any office. I go there all year long. And yet they still, over and over and over again, they just use people for their political gain. And that scares me. So it's okay to just watch the show. It's okay that if you want to say, Mike, I think you're wrong, say it. And it's okay to do that privately. But no matter what you do, please vote. Your voice is your vote. And it makes a massive difference. And it is all the difference. So let me take a quick break. I think Dr. Giovanni Scrungi is going to be with us in just a few moments. I want to get everything prepared for him and get a little more focused, perhaps, on some of the things that we're going to talk about here in the second half of our 2-hour program on No Soundbites Allowed. Please remember, we are on Tuesdays, Thursdays at 1 p.m., Saturdays from 12 noon till 2. You are always welcome to make comments, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, in our chat room, and let us know what you think, because this is always a conversation with you, always. And we want to talk about so many things, and I can't cover everything myself. There may be something you want to talk about, and I'll be happy to do so. But we'll be right back in just a moment with a little bit more of the program.